So, hello once more, my name is Denis, and I'm Google Developer Expert for Google Assistant, and while I'm not doing that, I'm studying high school. For the Firebase parts, I will be welcoming the best Macarena dancer, Dominik, and he will help me out with that. So, welcome to the talk. Hey Google, talk to my smart home. Well, we will be talking how you can use Google Assistant and, for example, your existing product to make it smarter and enable it to control by voice. I don't know how many of you were there for the previous talk, so once more, how many of you know Google Assistant? Good. So I will skip the explanation what it is, but I will explain it to you why it's important to focus on this platform. It's because it's available on more than 1 billion devices, and that's a huge platform you can use and leverage with your existing apps and existing devices, because there's lots of users that can make use of your app. And it's available on many different platforms, so it's not just mobile phones, like mobile apps. You can use it in headphones, dedicated hardware, or smart TVs. We'll be talking about smart home mostly, but just quick introduction that you can also make conversational actions for Google Assistant. The platform from both is called Actions on Google. Action is like an app on Google Assistant. And you will be talking to these apps. You can try it now. For example, if you say, hey Google, talk to Developer Festival, you will talk to Action about this DevFest. And the tool you will be using for these actions is called Dialogflow. It will handle the text recognition and intent matching and entity extraction. So it will give you something meaningful from what the user said, so you don't have to care about the natural language processing at all. It will be all done for you by Dialogflow. And it will look like this. Intent is called receive recommendation, and here are some phrases. These are the training phrases for this intent. And if the user says any of these phrases, it will trigger this intent. And the highlighted parameters are the entities, the data you want to parse out of the sentences. But that was just a really short introduction. There will be links at the end of the presentation that you can use if you want to learn more. Now, let's move to the smart home. So, as you probably know, I asked how many of you know Google Assistant, but how many of you use Google Assistant to control any type of smart home device? That's a lot of smaller numbers, so there is huge potential. And are any of you developing some kind of IoT kit or IoT device? No, sadly. But now you will know how you can do it. So Google Assistant can enable you to do all these kind of things, like, hey Google, turn off the lights. Sadly, the lights are still shining in my face, so that doesn't work. Or what is the temperature? How many lights are on? Or many other things like controlling, for example, blinds, controlling thermostat, and so on. And now, how does it work? You say something, Google Assistant takes it out and sends it to your webhook or to your smart home action. And then it goes back, executes the command, and Google Assistant returns the confirmation. As I said, there are a lot of devices that Google Assistant is available on. And these types of devices branch out to if you have just audio available, or if you also have a screen. If you have a screen, you can control a lot more easily just by pressing your the buttons and so on. But if you have just voice, it's something different. It's different experience for the user, and it could be different experience to build on. But with the Google Home Smart Home, with Action on Google Smart Home, you pretty much don't have to care if you are building for this or this, because you get the touch controls and the UI for free. So if you just build it once, and it doesn't matter if the user says it by voice or if he taps it in the app. Sorry that I'm a bit lagging, I'm really tired. But now, let's get to the dev part, and I will welcome Dominik.
Okay. Yeah. We will switch like 3 times during the presentation. Please don't cheer us every time. Let's get to the dev part. Mostly we power actions on Google by Cloud Functions for Firebase. Why? Because it's easy. Because it's easy to use. As you probably heard, we're using webhook for actions on Google. And like generating webhook from the Firebase is really easy. It's serverless environment from the Google. As you know, it's in the Firebase it's wrapped like the Google Cloud Command functions, but it's like almost the same as in the Google Cloud. In the cloud functions, we are using JavaScript language. You can use TypeScript, and the library for the actions on Google is written in the TypeScript. As I provided, I thought that's in JavaScript, but it's in TypeScript. It's also written in the different languages, but those new features are implemented in the JavaScript firstly. Triggers. Triggers has great thing in the cloud functions because you have triggers for example, HTTPS point. You have triggers when somebody writes some data in the database. You have triggers, for example, when someone creates the user in the database and things like that. And it's serverless. You don't have to manage any environment. Google takes care of that. And also actions on Google is by Google then. They are supporting mostly like Firebase. You can use, like, for example, I don't know, Azure thing, like some Azure endpoint. We are okay about that, but it's easier to use like cloud functions from the Google. Actions in Google client library, as I said, it's written in TypeScript, can be used in Kotlin, in Java, in JSON. What? Okay. And we are using HTTP fulfillment webhook. There's a small presentation how the simple code of the actions on Google webhook looks. You're just exporting the app, and that's a one endpoint for all the intents that you're getting from the action. And now we are switching back.
Cool, thank you. For the JSON explanation, all of the code can be sent like as pure JSON response and request. So you can make your own parser as a library and use that. So that's why there was JSON there. And now let's talk about limits, because you don't have to handle any of the conversational stuff. You don't have to parse the device. You don't have to parse the command. Of course, there will be some limitations of what you can do. For now, Google Assistant supports these types of types. So if your device is in this list, you are pretty much good to go. These are one type of requirement. So this will make your icon, for example, and it will suggest some traits that you can use. Traits are like functions of your device, and they are limited here. So it's pretty much self-explanatory. Brightness will set up the brightness of the light. Color will set up the color. Start, stop. Hey Google, stop the device. Hey Google, start the device. And toggles are modes, and modes are special. We will talk more about them in a few seconds. So for example, right now. So toggles. Toggles are not some complicated functions. These are just values that can be turned on or off. So there is a list of them, and they also have to be supported by Google. You cannot make them up. So for example, Bluetooth, internet, and so on. But what can be defined by you are modes. Mode have some name and then some types that can be set. So for example, here's program and set the oven to baking program. Or anything you can make up, because it's like new thing 2 weeks ago, they can be defined by you, not just by Google. Previously, there was just huge list of them defined by Google. Now they can enable it to do it on your own. And back to Dominik.
Okay, account linking. That's a huge thing in actions on Google because it's required, as you probably see. If you have the account in your app, Google it's required to link it with your Google account that you have in a Google Home. It's using standard auth flow, implicit or explicit, and it's starting. If you're using the explicit, it is starting the web view in your Google Home app. You can use the Firebase authentication that's using, for example, Facebook, Twitter, GitHub authentication, also anonymous authentication. You can log in, for example, with your phone number. And there is new thing coming, and it's in the developer preview. It's called App Flip. If you are already signed into your app, you don't have to like sign it again. The Google Home app, Google Home, or Action on Google will show your like the form that link that account that you have already in the app with your Google Home, and that's easy to use, but it's still in the developer preview. And yeah, sadly.
Thank you. So, as I told in the beginning, there are some intents that you can define. And as you've seen in the example of code, there was like onsync, onQuery, and so on. And now we will talk about them. These intents there are a few of them, and there are like functions that you have to define so the Google knows what to do. And all these intents work with something that's called home graph. Home graph is like a database where Google stores all the information about the user's home. So it gets the context. So for example, if I say turn the lights off, it knows that it can query the home graph. It knows that I'm in this room, and it knows that in this room with this Google Home are these lights. So it knows that it can turn them off and not all the lights in the house. So all these informations that you are going to get from Google and send to Google will be stored in home graph. And now let's get to the sync intent. Sync intent is like intent that is first called when user signs into the app, when the account linking is complete. And it handles like getting all the devices from your cloud and syncing them with the Google Cloud, with the home graph. So here you can see the graph after the linking is complete. Assistant will get all the devices, their traits, their capabilities, and syncs them with the home graph. And next intent is query and report state. When you, for example, open the Google Home app, it will refresh and ask for all the newest information that's available and show it in the UI. So it will continuously ask what's the new info and if everything is current. When you, for example, have Android app and then you have the Google Home app, if you make some changes in the Android app, you need to use report state to push the new changes into the Google Home graph. So everything is up to date, because it will be difficult if, for example, you lock your door in your Android app, but then you ask, hey Google, is my door locked? And it will say, no, it's not, because the information will be made in different apps and it will not sync. So that would be difficult. So that's why you need to always sync the clouds together, so it's not in disarray. The most important one probably is the execute intent. It will be called when user says some action. So when I say turn the lights off, it will call the execute intent with the IDs of the lights and what should I do with them, turn them off. So it will go through the speech recognition, all the natural language processing, which we don't have to take care about, but Google will do that, and just simple information, turn this off. And here is how it could look like. So these are the IDs of the devices, and here parameter, turn them on, and you will report back that you turned them on and the devices are online, or for example, some error message. And back to Dominik.
Last time. Okay, let's talk about Cloud Firestore. What is it? It's a NoSQL database from Google in the Firebase. Data is stored in the documents and collections, and it's great for the actions on Google because we are using the Cloud Functions from the Firebase, and it's already implemented via admin SDK there. Use the power of the Cloud Firestore. As I said, in Cloud Function, you have triggers. And when something, for example, created or deleted in the Firestore, there is trigger that will call the function. And you can, for example, sync all the devices that you have. For example, I deleted light. Yeah, I deleted the light, and based on the trigger, it will sync all the devices, and yeah. And on update, it's the same. For example, like I don't need to, but the billing thing about the Firestore is the huge thing, because you have 50,000 reads for free. Every other read is you have to pay for it, and I have like huge thing to talk about like billing. Yeah, that's only slide that I was supposed to create, and yeah, I created the one with the GIF. But there was one company in I think it was in New Zealand, and they used Firestore in the wrong way, and they had to pay $30,000 to the Google, because they didn't use the cloud functions as the supporter for the Firestore. That's the one thing that I want to say. Use cloud functions if you are using Firestore. It's easy to use with that, and it will help you with the number of reads and writes. There is like number of writes and reads that are free, but when you are, for example, having a huge number of reads from your devices, you're gonna pay really soon.
Thank you. So again, imagine the scenario with locking the doors. For example, imagine that you have open window next to the door, and someone could just shout out, "Hey Google, unlock the door." That wouldn't be really great for you, wouldn't it? So Google enables two-factor authentication for this type of situation. So it will require you to have some kind of second factor. So this could be like you can click on some notification in your phone, or you can just request simple password. So, hey Google, unlock the door. Okay, but do you have the authentication code? Sure, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's unlocked. This will probably work in the real life too. So you completely handle what is the second factor, and there are like 3 types of challenges. No challenge, it will go right away. Act needed, so for example, click on the notification or some PIN code. And these are supported in all device types and traits, so you can use them for whatever reason device you want. So for example, if you don't want someone to turn your lights off, you can totally do that. Local execution is pretty new from Google. It was launched just a few months ago after announcement on Google I/O, and it's a huge move forward in like smart home stuff with voice speakers, because until now everything was handled from cloud to cloud. So you said something, and Google Assistant will pick it up, send it to Google Cloud. From Google Cloud, it will be sent to your cloud, and same way, going back, it will take several milliseconds, several hundreds of them, just to complete a simple request to the light bulb that is 3 meters away from the smart speaker. So this could solve the problems like this and enable the smart speakers to be faster, because it's not great when you have, for example, multiple lights from similar manufacturers, and it all takes them different speeds to get turned off or on. I have it that if I walk to my room and say, "Hey Google, turn the lights off or on," I have like few steps like this until the lights are on. So this will solve this problem. And yeah, as I said, shorter execution time, less waiting. You can communicate using these protocols in your local network, and these will support new intents. So you have to create app that will run on the Google Home, and from there you will send the request. So your app will be running on the Google Home, and from there it will send the request in the local network. It supports also hubs, so if you have some hub that's controlling your devices, you can totally do that, but sadly there is no two-factor authentication for local execution. Here is the flow, and the cloud will be there always as a backup. So if there's some error in the local execution, it will go through the cloud to make up for it. So there are 2 factors, 2 ways, so one doesn't fail. Okay, this is like a really cool thing about Google Assistant, because before it was required to send your devices to Google, so this can be like verified that it works. Now you just run app like this and put the Google Home in front of it, and it will read the commands and it will verify them if they are working or not. So you will just turn it on and then go away for 30 minutes because it will start speaking, responding, and it will verify if everything is working or failing. So after this, you will just put it, get the log results, and send them to Google, and they will like have 2 weeks to respond to your request, and then you will get the result. And be included in the Google Home app as a partner for smart home. Here are some tips that you can use. There's cheat sheet, there are code labs if you want to get started, and also some tools which will help you develop for Google Assistant. You can find it here, and after this, we are done. So thank you for your attention. Thank you, Dominik. Have a great time and enjoy the last session, which is, I forgot what it is.
So, do we have any questions, or can we? There's one. Insider info. I don't think we can give insider info, but yeah. So,
Did you saw the live stream from the last I/O? We were one of the countries that's supposed to have Google Assistant in their own language, and yeah, Google team says that it was like a fail. And we are also marked as a Czechoslovakia. Yeah.
All right. Any more questions? So with that, I'll thank you guys.